The sound of the slap didn't just echo across the driveway, it felt like it cracked the air itself. It was a loud, sickening pop that instantly silenced the birds, the wind, and the chatter of the neighbors. My head snapped sideways with such force that my vision blurred, and the keys to my sister's car went flying from my hand, skittering across the pavement. My cheek was on fire, a throbbing red mark already forming, but the physical pain was nothing compared to the cold shock of who had just hit me. It was my father. And the reason for this public execution? I had politely refused to park my sister's car because she treated me like a servant. As I stood there, humiliated, shaking, and tasting the copper tang of blood from my split lip, I looked up. I expected to see regret in his eyes. Instead, I saw rage. I looked at my sister, the bride-to-be, expecting shock. Instead, she was laughing. And my mother? She just looked away, pretending she saw nothing. In that frozen moment, the family I had spent my entire life serving, protecting, and secretly funding finally showed me their true faces. They didn't love me, they owned me. Or so they thought. Because as I picked up my bag and walked away from that house, they had no idea that the hand my father used to slap me had just signed the death warrant for their perfect lives. I wasn't just walking away with my dignity. I was walking away with the passwords, the bank accounts, and the contracts that held their entire world together. To understand why this moment was so catastrophic for them, you have to understand the lie they were living. My name is Ariana, and for years, I was the invisible glue holding the Reed family together. On the surface, my parents and my sister projected an image of upper-middle-class success. They drove nice cars, wore designer clothes, and were currently bragging to the entire town about the wedding of the century for my sister. But behind closed doors, the reality was a house of cards. My father hadn't held a steady job in 3 years. My mother spent money faster than it came in. And my sister? She was a princess with a pauper's bank account. For the last 5 years, I was the one quietly paying the bills. I covered the mortgage gaps, the car notes, and the credit card minimums. When my sister got engaged, I stepped up again. I wanted her to be happy, so I secretly financed the entire wedding. The venue, the catering, the flowers, the DJ. Every single contract was in my name, linked to my bank account. They took the credit, I paid the invoices. I thought that if I gave enough, they would finally respect me. But standing in that driveway, watching my sister laugh at my pain, I realized I was never their daughter. I was just their ATM. I walked down the street, my phone shaking in my hand. My cheek was still radiating heat, but the tears had stopped. Sadness was rapidly being replaced by a cold, sharp clarity. I sat on a bench near a small cafe, away from their shouting, and unlocked my phone. I didn't call a friend to cry. I didn't call the police. I opened my email. The first thing I saw was the folder labeled Wedding Contracts. It was all there. The receipts, the advance payments, the vendor contacts. My hands were steady now. I clicked on the first number, the venue. A cheerful voice answered, "Martina's wedding, how can I help you?"
I took a deep breath and said the words that would incinerate $20,000 worth of planning in seconds. "Hi, this is Ariana Reed. Cancel the booking." The silence on the other end was heavy. "Ma'am, the whole booking? The wedding is 2 weeks away." "Yes," I said, my voice flat and calm. "Cancel everything, effective immediately." She started to stutter about cancellation policies and non-refundable deposits. "Charge me the fees. I don't care about the money. Just burn the reservation." I hung up and immediately dialed the next number, the catering company. Cancelled. The florist who had imported orchids from overseas. Cancelled. The photographer, the DJ, the luxury car rental, one by one I dismantled my sister's dream day. It took less than 45 minutes to destroy what had taken them 6 months to plan. By the time I put my phone down, thousands of dollars in plans had vanished into the ether. I sat back, ordered a coffee, and waited. I knew the silence wouldn't last long.
It started with a vibration, then a ping, then a relentless, continuous buzzing that made my phone dance across the table. Ding, ding, ding. 25 notifications in under a minute. The vendors had sent out the automated cancellation emails. The first message was from my father. "What did you do?" Then my sister. "Why did the venue just email me? Fix this." Then my mother. "Ariana, answer the phone right now." I watched the messages roll in like storm clouds, sipping my coffee. They were panicking. They were terrified. But they still weren't sorry. They were only sorry they got caught. I let the phone ring and ring, ignoring call after call. But then a notification popped up that I wasn't expecting. It was from a neighbor, Mrs. Higgins, the elderly woman who lived directly across the street. She had sent a video file with the caption, "I saw what happened. I am so sorry." I opened the file. It was a high-definition recording from her porch security camera. The angle was perfect. It captured everything. My sister throwing the keys, my quiet refusal, my father storming out, the wind-up, the slap, and the cruel laughter that followed. It was undeniable proof. My heart raced, not with fear, but with a surge of power. They were trying to spin the narrative that I was a spiteful daughter ruining a wedding for no reason. But I had the weapon that would silence them forever. My phone was still blowing up. My aunt, the family gossip who usually sided with my parents, called. I decided to answer. "Ariana, what is going on?" she practically screamed. "Your mother is crying, saying you hacked the wedding accounts. How could you do this to your sister?" I spoke slowly and clearly. "Auntie, they slapped the person paying for the wedding. Now they can pay for it themselves." There was a pause. "What? You were paying?" "Every dollar," I confirmed. "The venue, the food, the dress, all of it." "Oh, honey, they told us the groom's family was paying." "They lied," I said. "Check your WhatsApp." I forwarded the neighbor's video to my aunt. I knew exactly what she would do. Within minutes, that video was forwarded to the extended family group chat, the cousins group, and the church circle. Back at the house, the atmosphere shifted from panic to horror. Their phones started pinging with a different kind of notification. Shame. Cousins were messaging, "Is this real? You hit her? After she paid for everything?"
My sister wasn't just losing a wedding, she was losing her reputation. My father wasn't just a strict parent anymore. He was exposed as an abuser. They had tried to paint me as the villain, but in 1 hour I had turned the entire community against them. But the family wasn't done fighting yet.
Later that evening, the inevitable happened. I was at my friend's apartment, my temporary safe haven, when I heard aggressive knocking. I didn't need to guess who it was. I opened the door to see my mother and sister standing there, looking like absolute wrecks. My sister's makeup was streaked with tears, her face blotchy and red. My mother looked pale, trembling with a mix of rage and desperation. "Ariana, please!" My sister sobbed, stepping forward to grab my hand. I pulled back. "You have to fix this. The vendor won't talk to us. The groom is furious. Everyone is laughing at me." I looked at her, unmoved. "You're worried about being laughed at?" I asked. "You laughed when Dad slapped me across the face." "He didn't mean it," my mother interjected, her voice shrill. "He was just stressed. You know how he gets. You can't destroy the family over one mistake." "One mistake?" I laughed, a dry, humorless sound. "You've been using me for years. I was only family when I was writing checks. The moment I said no, you threw me out." "The groom's family is threatening to leave," my sister screamed, stomping her foot like a toddler. "If you don't reinstate the contracts, they're calling off the wedding." "Then I guess you're not getting married," I said calmly. "But where will you go?" my mother whispered, realizing her leverage was gone. "You need us." At that exact moment, my phone buzzed in my hand. It was an email from a luxury apartment complex I had applied to months ago, a place I never took because I was too busy spending my money on them. Application approved. I held up the phone. "I don't need you. I just got my own place. A place where no one hits me and no one treats me like a servant." I closed the door in their faces. I could hear my sister wailing in the hallway, but for the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. The next few weeks were a slow-motion car crash for the Reed family. Without my income, the financial reality hit them like a freight train. It wasn't just the wedding. I had been paying for the basics. 3 days later, their internet was cut off. A week later, my father's car was repossessed from the driveway in broad daylight. 2 weeks later, the electricity was shut off for non-payment. But the biggest blow came from the groom. The video of the slap had made its way to his parents. They were a conservative, respectable family, and they were horrified, not just by the violence, but by the deception. They had been told my parents were wealthy financiers of the wedding. When they found out the wealth was actually stolen from the daughter they abused, they pulled the plug. The groom broke off the engagement, but he didn't just leave. His family demanded the return of the engagement ring and $12,000 in gifts they had given my parents for wedding preparations, money my parents had already spent on themselves. My sister was left single, humiliated, and facing a lawsuit. My father was ostracized by the neighborhood. My mother was left sitting in a dark house with no power, surrounded by unpaid bills. A month later, my father tried to call me one last time. His voice was weak, broken. He didn't demand anything. He just whispered, "Ariana,
We don't know how to fix this. We're drowning. I sat on the balcony of my new apartment, looking out at the city lights, feeling a peace I had never known. "You can't fix it, Dad," I said softly, "because you didn't just break the wedding. You broke the person who was keeping you afloat." I hung up and blocked the number. People often say that revenge is toxic, that you should forgive and forget. But I learned something different. I didn't destroy my family. I simply stopped saving them from the consequences of their own actions. The slap was painful, yes, but in the end, it was the wake-up call I needed to stop being their victim and start being the hero of my own life. They lost everything, but I finally found myself, and that was worth every penny.